My name is Natalie Morgan, and I watched my son freeze mid-bite at Christmas Eve dinner. The fork stopped halfway to his mouth. His eyes went wide, then dropped to his plate like he was trying to disappear into the mashed potatoes. Across the table, my sister Veronica was still talking, still laughing, her wine glass catching the light from the chandelier she had installed last spring. The chandelier I paid for. Your son will always need help, Natalie. Face it. He is never going to be normal. The words hung in the air like smoke. I could feel everyone at the table shift, the subtle repositioning of people who did not want to get involved. My mother lifted her wine glass and took a long sip, her eyes fixed on the centerpiece. My father studied the pattern on his plate like it contained the secrets of the universe. Derek, my brother-in-law, actually smirked. Marcus dropped his fork. The clatter of metal against china cut through the silence, and every head turned toward him. My 12-year-old son, who had just performed a piano piece he had been practicing for 3 months, who had stood in front of everyone and played his heart out despite his trembling hands, was now fighting back tears in front of the entire family. His face had gone red, that particular shade of humiliation that children wear when they realize adults can be cruel too. I waited. I waited for my mother to say something. I waited for my father to tell Veronica that was enough. I waited for anyone at that table to defend my child. No one did. My mother changed the subject to the weather. My father asked Derek about golf. Veronica reached for another dinner roll like she had not just gutted a 12-year-old boy in front of his entire family. I looked at my sister. She was wearing a red silk dress that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Her diamond earrings caught the light every time she moved. Her highlighted hair was salon perfect. Her nails were freshly manicured, probably from that spa in Myers Park where a basic pedicure cost $200. I knew because I was the one paying for it. I was paying for all of it. The dress, the earrings, the house we were sitting in, the private school her 3 children attended, the country club membership, the Mercedes in the driveway, the designer bag sitting on the counter that I did not recognize, the one I had not paid for, a Birkin that must have cost more than some people's annual salary. I was looking at a woman whose entire lifestyle I had been secretly funding for 6 years, and she had just called my son defective. Something inside me shifted. It was not rage. Rage is hot and messy and makes you do stupid things. This was different. This was cold. This was clear. This was the feeling of finally seeing something that had been right in front of you the whole time. Marcus pushed back from the table. His chair scraped against the hardwood floor. "Excuse me," he mumbled, not looking at anyone. "I need to use the bathroom." He walked fast toward the hallway, his shoulders hunched up around his ears, moving with that stiff urgency of someone trying very hard not to run, trying very hard not to cry in front of people who would only use his tears against him later. Veronica watched him go with a little shake of her head. "He is so sensitive," she sighed, reaching for her wine. "You really coddle him, Natalie. That is the problem. He needs to toughen up. The world is not going to be nice to him." I stood up from the table. My napkin dropped onto my seat. "Excuse me." I walked down the hallway of my sister's McMansion, past the family photos in their matching silver frames, past the abstract art that cost more than my car, past all the evidence of a life that looked successful from the outside. I knew the truth of that life. I knew every invoice, every transfer, every desperate phone call that had built this illusion of prosperity. I found Marcus in the guest bedroom, the one at the end of the hall where it was quiet. He was sitting on the floor in the corner between the bed and the wall, his noise-canceling headphones on, rocking slightly back and forth. His eyes were closed, but tears were streaming down his cheeks. He was not making any sound. I sat down on the floor next to him. I did not touch him. I had learned over the years that when Marcus was overwhelmed, when the world got too loud and too cruel, he needed space before he needed comfort. So I just sat there, being present, letting him know he was not alone. After a few minutes, he took off the headphones. His eyes were swollen. "Is it true?" His voice cracked on the words. "Mom, is it true what she said? Is what true, sweetheart? That I am a burden, that I will never be normal." The pain that shot through my chest was physical. It was like someone had reached inside my ribcage and squeezed. "No, no, Marcus, you are not a burden. You have never been a burden. But Aunt Veronica said I will always need help. She said I am limited." I looked at my son. My brilliant, creative, hard-working son. The boy who had taught himself piano because he loved music so much. The boy who spent hours composing melodies on his keyboard, who could hear a song once and play it back from memory. The boy who worked twice as hard as other kids to do the same schoolwork because his brain processed things differently. Not worse. Differently. "Aunt Veronica is wrong," I said firmly. "She does not know you. She has never taken the time to know you. She does not know about the coding you taught yourself. She does not know that you are building a website for your music teacher. She does not see who you really are." She laughs at me. His voice dropped to a whisper. They all laugh. I felt something harden inside me. It was not new, this hardness. It had been building for years, maybe for decades. But right now, sitting on the floor of my sister's guest room with my crying child, it finally solidified into something unbreakable. Listen to me, Marcus. I need you to hear this. This is the last time. I promise you this is the last time anyone in this family makes you feel like this. He looked at me, confused. "What do you mean? Do we have to leave?" "No. We are going to finish dinner." I said the words slowly, meaning every one of them. But after tonight, things are going to be very different. How? Because I am done helping people who hurt us. He did not understand. How could he? He did not know about the money. He did not know that every month, on the second day of the month, $4,500 left my account and went into his aunt's. He did not know that I paid for his cousin's private school tuition, $38,000 per child per year. He did not know that the house we were sitting in, the cars in the driveway, the clothes on Veronica's back, all of it was held up by my salary, my sacrifice, my silence. He just knew that his aunt was mean and no one stopped her. I helped him wash his face. I offered him a choice. He could stay in the room with his tablet and his headphones, or he could come back to the table. He chose to stay. I did not push him. I walked to the bathroom down the hall and looked at myself in the mirror. Same face I had seen that morning. Dark hair pulled back, minimal makeup, a simple navy dress from a department store, nothing designer, nothing special. I looked like what I was supposed to be in this family. The boring one, the reliable one, the one who did not need anything. I walked back toward the dining room. I could hear Veronica's voice carrying down the hallway. That particular pitch she used when she was holding court. She has always been sensitive about him. You cannot even give her honest advice without her getting upset. My mother's voice, lower but still audible. She will get over it. She always does. Laughter. I stepped into the dining room. Everyone looked up. Veronica waved her fork at me like nothing had happened. "Oh, good, you are back. Is Marcus okay?" "I swear, Natalie, that boy needs thicker skin." I sat down in my chair. I picked up my fork. I did not respond to her. The table conversation resumed around me. They talked about Veronica's kitchen renovation. They talked about the trip she and Derek were planning to Martha's Vineyard. They talked about Connor's performance on the varsity soccer team and how Sarah might make the competitive cheer squad next year. I ate my dinner and said nothing. I watched them. I watched my sister preen and brag about a life that existed only because I funded it. I watched my mother nod along adoringly, as she had been doing since we were children. I watched my father avoid eye contact with everyone, as he had been doing for 40 years. Under the table I felt something pressing against my hand, a folded piece of paper. I looked up and Aunt Cecilia, my mother's sister, was looking at me with an expression I could not quite read. She gave a tiny nod toward my hand. I palmed the note without looking at it, slipped it into my pocket. As dessert was served, Veronica made another comment. "It is too bad Marcus is not out here for pie." Oh well, he is probably too sensitive for sugar too. Derek laughed. My mother smiled tightly. My father excused himself to get more coffee. Then Veronica added, "Quieter but not quiet enough. He is so sensitive, just like his father was. Remember him, Nat? The one who could not handle it either?" She was comparing my son to the man who abandoned us. The man who walked out when Marcus was 4 years old right after the diagnosis, because he could not deal with having a child who was different. Something that had been cracking inside me finally broke clean through. But the break was not destruction. It was release. I smiled at my sister. I thanked my mother for the lovely dinner. I collected my son from the guest bedroom and walked him out to my sensible 5-year-old sedan. I drove us home in silence. That night, after Marcus went to bed, I took out the note from Aunt Cecilia. 2 sentences, written in her neat handwriting. "We need to talk, alone." It is about Veronica. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and looked at the bank transfer scheduled for January 2nd. $4,500. Destination, Veronica's checking account. The same transfer I had made every month for almost 4 years. My hand hovered over the keyboard. For 6 years I had been buying peace, buying acceptance, buying the illusion that I belonged in this family. Tonight I learned what that money actually bought me. The privilege of watching my sister mock my child while everyone stayed silent. I thought about Marcus asking if he was a burden. I thought about him hiding in the guest room, crying without making a sound. I thought about all the Christmas dinners and Thanksgivings and Easter brunches where Veronica made her little comments and nobody said a word. I had paid for every single one of those meals. Not anymore. I clicked cancel transfer. The screen asked me if I was sure. I had never been more sure of anything in my life. The drive home from Veronica's house was silent. Marcus sat in the passenger seat with his headphones on, staring out the window at the Christmas lights decorating the houses in Myers Park. Every house on this street cost at least $1 million. Every lawn was perfectly manicured, every decoration professionally installed. I drove through this neighborhood of wealth and wondered how many of these families had secrets like ours. My phone buzzed in my purse. I ignored it. I knew who it was. When we pulled into the driveway of my townhouse, modest and simple compared to where we had just been, Marcus finally spoke. "Can we just go home?" "We are home, sweetheart." He nodded and got out of the car without another word. I watched him walk to the front door, his shoulders still hunched, still carrying the weight of what his aunt had said. I wanted to tell him it would be okay. I wanted to promise him that people would not always be this cruel. But I had learned a long time ago not to make promises I could not keep. Inside, the warmth of our small home wrapped around us. The Christmas tree in the corner was nothing like Veronica's 12-foot designer spectacle. Ours was 6 feet tall, decorated with ornaments Marcus had made over the years, strung with lights that blinked unevenly because I had bought them on sale 3 years ago. It was imperfect and beautiful and ours. Marcus headed straight for the stairs. "I am going to my room." "Okay, I love you." He paused on the 3rd step. "Love you too, Mom." Then he was gone, and I was alone with the silence and my thoughts. As I drove, my mind kept drifting back, the way it always did when Veronica hurt me. Back to the beginning, to all the small moments that had built into this towering structure of resentment and imbalance. Growing up in Charlotte, we were a middle-class family in a middle-class neighborhood. Nothing special, nothing lacking. But inside our house there was a clear divide. Veronica was the older sister, 4 years ahead of me, and she was everything I was not. She was beautiful where I was plain. She was social where I was quiet. She demanded attention and she received it. My mother had a philosophy she never stated outright but demonstrated daily. Veronica needs more support. Natalie is fine on her own. I heard variations of this throughout my childhood. Veronica is sensitive. We have to be careful with her. Natalie can handle it. She is strong. Veronica needs dance lessons to build her confidence. Natalie can read books from the library. She does not need anything extra. When Veronica was 16, she won Junior Miss Charlotte. My mother framed the photograph and hung it in the living room. It stayed there for 20 years. When I graduated valedictorian of my high school class, I got a card with $20 inside and a pat on the shoulder. I was the easy child. I did my homework without being asked. I never caused trouble. I never demanded anything because I learned early that demanding would get me nowhere. So I became self-sufficient. I became the daughter who did not need anything. The problem was, I did need things. I needed my mother to notice when I was struggling. I needed my father to stand up for me when Veronica was cruel. I needed to feel like I belonged in my own family. I never got any of that. So I stopped expecting it. After college, our paths diverged completely. I went into finance, starting at an entry-level position and working my way up through long hours and relentless focus. I lived in a small apartment for years, saving every penny. I drove used cars. I bought clothes on clearance. By the time I was 30, I had built a career that made me one of the top financial analysts at my firm. Nobody in my family understood what I did. They just knew I worked with numbers. Boring, my mother said once. Not glamorous like Veronica's life. Veronica had married Derek Hayes at 24. Derek was handsome and charming, and worked in car sales, which sounded impressive until you realized his income was entirely commission-based and wildly unpredictable. But Veronica did not want predictable. She wanted impressive. She wanted a big house in a nice neighborhood. She wanted private schools for her children and a membership at the country club. She wanted the life she felt she deserved. The gap between what she wanted and what Derek could provide was vast. I did not know how vast until 6 years ago, when my mother showed up at my apartment crying. Veronica is going to lose her house. The children will be on the street. You have to help, Natalie. You are doing so well. You have so much. Can you not just help a little? I remember standing in my kitchen, looking at my mother's tearful face, feeling the familiar weight of being the responsible one. I had just started saving for a house of my own. I had plans, goals, a future I was building brick by brick. But Veronica was family, and family helps family. I gave them $25,000 to cover the back payments on their mortgage. I told myself it was a loan. I told myself it was a one-time thing. It was neither. 6 months later, there was another crisis, then another. The one-time emergency became a monthly payment, $4,500, transferred on the 2nd of every month just to help with cash flow. That was how my mother phrased it. Just temporary until Derek's commissions pick up. Derek's commissions never picked up, but my payments did. After 2 years, I was paying full tuition at Thornwood Academy for all 3 of Veronica's children. $38,000 per child per year. That was $114,000 annually just for school. Then came the country club membership. It is for Derek's networking, my mother explained. He needs to make connections for business. $18,000 for the initiation fee, monthly dues on top of that, then the car payments when they fell behind, then the credit card bills when those got out of control, then the extras, the emergencies, the one-time things that kept happening over and over. I was not helping my sister anymore. I was funding her entire existence. The worst part was the deception. Derek did not know the money came from me. Veronica had told him it was from investments, from a trust fund, from their grandmother's inheritance. She had built an elaborate lie to protect his pride while spending my salary, and I went along with it. I kept the secret because my mother asked me to. Because Veronica said it would humiliate Derek to know. Because I thought somehow that if I was useful enough, generous enough, invisible enough, my family would finally see me. They never did. They just saw a checkbook. I poured myself a cup of cold coffee and stood in my kitchen, looking around at the life I had built. My townhouse was comfortable but modest. My car was 7 years old but paid off. My clothes came from department stores, not boutiques. To anyone looking at me and Veronica side by side, she was the successful one. She had the big house, the nice cars, the designer wardrobe. No one knew that I could have had all of that too. No one knew that I had chosen to live small so I could fund her living large. And for what? for the privilege of being mocked at Christmas dinner, for the honor of watching my sister call my son limited while everyone stayed silent. I opened my laptop and pulled up the spreadsheet I had created years ago. I called it Family Support Tracking, a clinical name for something that felt like bleeding. I rarely looked at the totals. They made me sick. But tonight I forced myself to see. Thornwood Academy tuition over 6 years, adjusted for the first 2 partial years. Approximately $580,000 just for school. Monthly support payments, $4,500 times 72 months, $324,000. Country club fees over 4 years, roughly $90,000. Additional emergencies, car payments, credit card coverage, miscellaneous, another $80,000. The total at the bottom of the spreadsheet made me physically ill. $680,000. I had given my sister nearly $700,000 over 6 years. That was more than most people made in a decade. That was enough to buy a house outright in most cities. That was Marcus's college fund, my retirement cushion, my freedom, all handed over to a woman who laughed when her children mocked mine. I scrolled through the line items, looking at each payment like evidence at a trial. And then I noticed something I had never caught before. The tuition invoices from Thornwood Academy showed different amounts over the years. 4 years ago, $36,000 per child. 3 years ago, $37,500. But the last 2 years showed $42,000 per child. I pulled up the school's website and checked their published tuition rates. $38,000 for the current year. The numbers did not match. I went back through my records. For the past 2 years, Veronica had been billing me $4,000 more per child than the actual tuition cost. 3 children times $4,000 was $12,000 per year. Over 2 years, that was $24,000. She had been skimming. On top of everything else, she had been inflating the invoices and pocketing the difference. I was not just funding her lifestyle, I was being stolen from. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Then I noticed something else in my bank records. A pending automatic withdrawal I had not authorized. Veronica had set up a backup payment from my account, scheduled for January 3rd, the day after my regular transfer. She had anticipated that I might cancel. She had created a failsafe. She had been planning for this. For me finally saying no. I canceled the unauthorized withdrawal and changed my banking password. My hands were steady, my mind was clear. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked. 12 messages from Veronica since we left dinner. The first few were dismissive. Do not be so dramatic. You always make everything about you. Mom says you need to apologize for leaving early. The last one made my blood run cold. Do not forget January transfer is due on the 2nd. Do not be late this time. XOXO. A shopping bag emoji at the end. Like she was ordering a package, not demanding money. No apology for what she said to Marcus. No acknowledgement that she had done anything wrong. Just a reminder that my payment was due. I heard music drifting down from upstairs. Marcus at his keyboard, playing something slow and sad. Even after everything tonight, he was still making music. Still creating something beautiful out of his pain. That was who my son was. Someone who worked twice as hard to accomplish what came easily to others. Someone who turned his struggles into art. Someone who never gave up, no matter how many times the world told him he was not enough. And Veronica had called him limited. I opened my banking app and found the scheduled transfer. $4,500, January 2nd. I pressed Cancel Series. Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring transfer? I pressed Yes. Confirmed. Recurring transfer canceled. That night, I slept better than I had in years. I did not dream about money or family obligations or the endless weight of being needed. I slept deeply and peacefully, like a woman who had finally put down a burden she had been carrying for far too long. Tomorrow, I would meet with Aunt Cecilia and find out what she knew. Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. But tonight, I was done. And being done felt like freedom. Christmas morning arrived with pale winter light filtering through my curtains. I lay in bed for a few minutes, listening to the silence. Usually Marcus was up at dawn on Christmas, excited about presents, bouncing around the house with more energy than I could handle before coffee. This year, the house was quiet. I found him in his room at 9 o'clock, staring at the ceiling with his headphones on. His Christmas presents sat wrapped under the tree downstairs, untouched. "Hey, sweetheart, Merry Christmas." He pulled off his headphones. "Merry Christmas, Mom. Do you want to come open presents? Maybe later." The words hit me harder than they should have. This was supposed to be his favorite day of the year. Veronica had taken that from him too. I went downstairs and made coffee, then sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. The spreadsheet from last night was still open, the numbers glaring at me like accusations. I started going through the Thornwood Academy invoices more carefully. The payments had been going to something called Thornwood Academy Parent Account, not directly to the school. I had assumed it was some kind of billing portal. Now I wondered if it was an account Veronica controlled. I searched my email for any correspondence from the school. There was nothing. All communication had gone through Veronica. She had been the intermediary, the filter between me and the institution I was supposedly paying. My phone buzzed. A text from Graham Bennett, my coworker. "Merry Christmas. Hope you and Marcus are having a good one. How was family dinner?" Graham had been my friend at work for 3 years. We had lunch together most days, talked about everything except the things that really mattered. He knew bits and pieces about my family, the sanitized version I told everyone. He did not know about the money. I typed and deleted several responses before settling on the truth. It was rough. My sister said some cruel things about Marcus. His reply came quickly. "I am sorry." "That is awful. Are you okay?" No, I was not okay. But I typed, "I will be." He offered to talk if I needed it. He made a joke about his own sister insulting his cooking at their family dinner. He told me I worked harder than anyone he knew, and I deserved better from people. I stared at that last message for a long time. You deserve better. When was the last time anyone in my family had said something like that to me? The answer was never. I walked through my townhouse looking at the life I had built. Every piece of furniture chosen carefully within budget. Every appliance practical and functional. My kitchen with its 15-year-old countertops. My living room with the second-hand couch I had recovered myself. I thought about Veronica's house, the marble countertops I had paid for, the professional landscaping funded by my monthly transfers, the brand new appliances, the designer furniture, the art on the walls that cost more than my car. She treated me like the poor relation. She looked down on my modest life. She pitied me while wearing clothes purchased with my money. And I had let her. Year after year, I had let her. My laptop pinged, a text coming through from a number I did not recognize. "Someone at your company was asking questions about you. Be careful." I stared at the screen. No name, no explanation, just a warning from an anonymous source. Who was asking questions? What kind of questions? I tried calling the number. It rang 6 times and went to a generic voicemail. I texted back, "Who is this?" No response. I looked at Aunt Cecilia's note still sitting on my kitchen counter. "We need to talk, alone. It is about Veronica. Tomorrow I would find out what Cecilia knew, and maybe I would find out who was warning me too." That afternoon, Marcus finally came downstairs. He stood in the living room looking at the Christmas tree, at the modest pile of presents underneath it. "Can we open them now?" Relief flooded through me. Of course we can. We sat together on the floor and I watched him unwrap each gift. Sheet music for a piece he had been wanting to learn. New noise-canceling headphones better than his old ones. A book about famous pianists throughout history. Art supplies because he liked to draw too. He looked at each present with genuine appreciation, not the bored entitlement I had seen in his cousins over the years. "You always know what I like, Mom." I had to blink back tears. I swear I was not a crier, but something about his simple gratitude undid me. He noticed. "Are you sad about last night?" "A little," I admitted, "but being here with you makes it better." He hugged me. It was rare for him to initiate physical affection, and I held on to the moment. "I do not need Aunt Veronica to like me," he said quietly. "I just need you." Later that evening, after we had eaten leftover Christmas cookies for dinner because neither of us felt like cooking, Marcus sat down at his keyboard. He started playing something new, something I had not heard before. A melody that built slowly, moved through minor keys, then resolved into something almost hopeful. "What is that?" I asked. "Something I am working on. I do not have a name for it yet." I listened as he played, as his fingers moved across the keys with the kind of focus that made him forget the rest of the world existed. This was his gift. Not despite his ADHD and dyslexia, but woven through them. His brain worked differently, and that difference made him see patterns and hear music that other people missed. Veronica had called him limited. She had no idea what she was looking at. When he finished, I made a decision. I opened my banking app and found the unauthorized automatic withdrawal Veronica had set up, the backup payment she had created without my knowledge. I canceled it. Then I went through every account I had, looking for anything else she might have done without telling me. I found 3 credit card charges from the past month that I had not made. Small amounts, probably hoping I would not notice. A spa visit, a restaurant, a department store. She had added herself as an authorized user on my credit card without asking permission. I removed her access. Then I went back to the scheduled transfer for January 2nd. I had already canceled it, but I pulled up the confirmation screen just to look at it again. Recurring transfer canceled. 6 years of payments ended with a single click. My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. She knows something is wrong. Be ready. I did not know who was warning me or why, but I knew they were right. Veronica would not let this go quietly. The storm was coming, and for the first time in my life, I was ready for it. The next morning I drove to Blue Moon Cafe to meet Aunt Cecilia. The coffee shop was tucked away in a working-class neighborhood on the east side of Charlotte, far from the expensive boutiques and exclusive restaurants of Myers Park. There was no chance of running into Veronica or anyone from her social circle here. I arrived early and took a corner booth facing the door. The cafe was small and worn, with exposed brick walls and mismatched furniture, the kind of place that served excellent coffee and did not care about appearances. It felt honest, which was more than I could say for most of the places I had been lately. At exactly 2 o'clock, Cecilia walked in. She was 61, my mother's younger sister, with silver hair cut short and practical. She wore no jewelry except a simple watch. Her clothes were sensible, not designer. She had always been the outcast of our family, labeled as difficult and jealous by my mother, dismissed as someone who did not understand how families worked. I was beginning to think she was the only one who understood anything at all. She spotted me and walked over, her face serious. She slid into the booth across from me and ordered tea when the server came by. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I know yesterday was hard. You said you had something to tell me about Veronica." Cecilia nodded. She pulled out her phone and placed it on the table between us. "I have been suspicious of your sister for a long time. 2 months ago I saw something I could not ignore. She told me the story. She had been having lunch at a restaurant in uptown Charlotte near the Ritz-Carlton. Expensive, exclusive, the kind of place where business deals were made over $300 bottles of wine. She had noticed Veronica at a corner table. Veronica was not alone. The man with her was in his late 40s, well-dressed, silver at the temples. He had the look of money, real money, the kind that came from decades of accumulation rather than the desperate performance Veronica put on. They were sitting close together, their conversation intimate. At one point, he reached across the table and took her hand. Cecilia had taken photos. She turned her phone toward me and scrolled through the images. Veronica and the man holding hands. Veronica laughing at something he said, leaning in close. The man slipping something into her purse, something that looked like cash or a credit card. And then a photo that made my stomach turn. Veronica and the man kissing. Not a friendly peck on the cheek. A real kiss. "Who is he?" I asked. Cecilia put down the phone. His name is Victor Ashford. He is a real estate developer, very wealthy, and very married. I thought about the Birkin bag I had seen at Christmas Eve dinner, the one I had not paid for. Now I knew where it came from. How long has this been going on? Based on what I found, at least a year. Maybe longer. Cecilia paused. But Natalie, that is not the worst part. There is more. She told me about the credit card. Cecilia helped manage some of my mother's finances, a loose arrangement between sisters. 3 months ago, Patricia had mentioned a credit card statement that arrived in the mail, one she did not recognize. She was confused. Cecilia offered to look into it. What she found was damning. The credit card had been opened in Patricia's name 2 years ago. The current balance was $34,000. Patricia had never opened the account. The signature on the application was forged. The billing address traced back to Veronica. Our sister committed identity fraud against our own mother. Cecilia's voice was flat, controlled, but I could hear the anger underneath. She has been making charges on this card for 2 years. Mom had no idea. I felt sick. Does Mom know now? I tried to tell her. 6 months ago I showed her everything. Cecilia shook her head. She refused to believe it. She said Veronica must have had a good reason. Then she accused me of being jealous and told me never to bring it up again. Of course she did. Patricia had spent her entire life protecting Veronica from consequences. Why would financial crimes change that? There is something else, Cecilia said. Something about your father. My father? I think Veronica has involved him in something. Something he does not fully understand. 2 years ago, Harold came to me. He was upset, asking questions about financial documents. He said Veronica had asked him to sign something, told him it was routine paperwork. He did not realize what it was until later. What was it? Cecilia shook her head. I do not know exactly. Something about a loan, maybe. He was too ashamed to tell me the details. But I think your father signed something that Veronica used for fraud, and he has been terrified ever since. I sat back in the booth, processing. Veronica was not just entitled and cruel, she was a criminal. She had committed identity fraud against our mother. She had possibly involved our father in bank fraud. She was having an affair with a wealthy married man while taking money from me to maintain her lifestyle. The layers of deception were staggering. What do you want to do? Cecilia asked. I have already stopped the payments. I canceled the monthly transfer 2 days ago. Cecilia's eyebrows rose. Good. It is about time. But I need more information. I need to know exactly what Veronica has done and who else she has hurt. I need documentation. I can help with that. I have been keeping records, photos, statements, dates. Cecilia smiled, but it was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this moment. Your mother will never believe me. But she might believe you. And if she does not, at least you will know the truth. I told her about the tuition discrepancies I had found. The $12,000 per year Veronica had been skimming. I told her about the unauthorized credit card charges and the backup automatic withdrawal Veronica had set up. Cecilia was not surprised. She has been doing this for years. To everyone. I just never had proof before. We talked for another hour, comparing notes, building a picture of Veronica's deceptions. When we finally stood to leave, Cecilia put a hand on my arm. Talk to your father. Alone. Away from Patricia. He knows more than he has been willing to say, and I think he is ready to talk. I nodded. Thank you, Cecilia. For everything. She squeezed my arm. You are not alone in this, Natalie. You never were. I just could not reach you before. I drove home with my mind racing. Victor Ashford, identity fraud, forged documents involving my father, an affair that had been going on for at least a year, and underneath all of it, the same pattern I had seen my entire life. Veronica taking what she wanted, everyone else paying the price. My phone buzzed as I pulled into my driveway, another text from the unknown number. She knows something is wrong. The payment did not go through, I typed back. Who are you? How do you know this? This time, an answer came. Someone who should have spoken up years ago. I will tell you everything soon. Not yet. Not safe. I stared at the message. Someone who should have spoken up years ago. Someone close to the situation, close enough to know what Veronica was doing. Who was warning me? And what else did they know? I would find out eventually. For now, I had a more immediate task. Tomorrow, I would talk to my father. The next morning, I called my parents' house. Patricia answered, her voice cold. I assume you are calling to apologize for ruining Christmas. I took a breath. I need to speak with Dad, alone. Why? So you can poison him against your sister too? I thought fast. It is about his car, a technical issue. I need his advice. She bought the lie, probably because she had no interest in anything automotive. Fine. He is in the garage, as always, hiding. I drove to my parents' house, the modest split level where I had grown up. It looked smaller every time I visited, the lawn a little more worn, the paint a little more faded. My parents had lived there for 40 years, and the house showed every one of them. I did not ring the doorbell. I went straight to the detached garage where my father spent most of his time, working on woodworking projects that no one asked for but everyone received at Christmas and birthdays. The garage door was open. Harold Morgan stood at his workbench, sanding a piece of wood with careful, methodical strokes. He was 66 years old, tall and thin, with the stooped posture of a man who had spent decades trying to make himself smaller. He looked up when I walked in. His eyes registered surprise, then something else, something that looked almost like relief. Natalie. I did not expect you. I closed the garage door behind us. Privacy. We needed privacy. Dad, I need to talk to you. Really talk. He set down the sandpaper. His hands were trembling slightly. Is this about Christmas? It is about everything. He was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled up a wooden stool and sat down heavily, like the weight of what was coming was too much to bear standing. I sat across from him on an overturned crate. Dad, do you know where Veronica's money comes from? The question hung between us. I watched his face change, watched the defenses crumble, watched something that had been held in for years finally break free. I have known for 4 years, he said quietly. The confession poured out. He had overheard Patricia on the phone with Veronica, discussing the monthly amount, asking if I had sent it yet. He had confronted Patricia, demanded to know what was going on. Her response had been typical. It is none of your business. Natalie is happy to help. We do not discuss it. Harold had known for 4 years that I was funding Veronica's lifestyle. He had watched me being used, watched me being mocked at family gatherings, and said nothing. I wanted to speak up. His voice cracked. But your mother, she controls everything, every conversation, every decision, every family narrative. I was afraid. Afraid of what? He looked at me with eyes full of shame. Afraid she would leave me, afraid I would lose everything, afraid of being alone. 40 years of marriage, and my father had been living in fear of his own wife. The realization was devastating. There is more, he said. I gave Veronica money too. What? He had been giving her money from his retirement savings, secretly, without Patricia knowing. $50,000 over 3 years. She said she was desperate. She said the children would suffer. He rubbed his face with calloused hands. She said not to tell your mother because it would cause problems. The same manipulation she had used on me, on everyone. The same script, the same performance, the same lies. Dad, there is something else I need to ask you about. Cecilia told me Veronica had you sign a document a few years ago. Something you did not understand. His face went pale. He told me the story. 2 years ago, Veronica had come to him with a stack of paperwork. She needed a witness signature, she said. Just routine bank documents. Nothing to worry about. She pointed to the signature line. She rushed him. She told him not to read the fine print because it was boring legal language that did not matter. He had signed. It was not until later that he realized what he might have done. The document looked like a loan application. His signature appeared not as a witness but as a co-borrower or guarantor. He had asked Veronica for a copy, but she said it was filed with the bank, nothing to worry about. He had worried about it every day since. I think I signed something illegal. His voice was barely above a whisper. I think she used my signature to get money she could not get on her own. And if anyone finds out, I could go to prison. I am 66 years old, Natalie. I could lose everything. I looked at my father. For the first time I saw not the passive man who had never defended me, but another victim of Veronica's manipulation. He had been trapped too, just in a different way. Dad, I have stopped funding Veronica. Completely. As of 3 days ago, no more money. He looked up, fear and hope battling in his eyes. She will come after you. I know. She came after me when I said I could not give more. She threatened to tell your mother about the retirement money. She has been blackmailing me, Natalie. Blackmailing her own father for money he could not afford to give. There was no bottom to how low Veronica would go. Then we need to get ahead of this, I said. Together. I have Cecilia's help. She has documentation. And we are going to need a lawyer. A lawyer. Whatever document you signed, whatever Veronica did with it, we need to protect you. And to do that, I need to know everything. Over the next hour, my father told me every detail he could remember. The timing of the document signing, right when Veronica was having the kitchen renovated. The amount she had been asking for at the time. Around $175,000. The payments I had unknowingly been making as part of the mortgage help I thought I was providing. Veronica had taken out a home equity loan using our father as a fraudulent cosigner, and I had been paying it off without knowing. When I stood to leave, Harold walked me to my car. Patricia was visible in the kitchen window, watching us with an unreadable expression. Your mother will never forgive me for taking your side, Harold said quietly. You are not taking sides. You are telling the truth. In this family, that is the same thing. My phone rang as I reached the car. Veronica's ringtone, the one I had assigned to her years ago so I would know to brace myself before answering. I looked at my father. He saw the caller ID. You do not have to answer. I know. But I want to hear what she says. I picked up. Veronica's voice was high-pitched, barely controlled. The panic was audible underneath the anger. Natalie, we need to talk. Now. There has been some kind of banking error. My payment did not come through. The school called, the club called. What is going on? There is no error, Veronica. Silence on the line. Then, quieter, more dangerous. What do you mean? I mean the payments have stopped, permanently. The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. 4, 5, you cannot do that. Her voice had gone cold. I already did. This is not over, Natalie. The line went dead. I looked at my father through the car window. He looked older than he had an hour ago, but also somehow straighter, like telling the truth had taken a weight off his shoulders. The storm was here, and I was ready. January 2nd arrived like any other Monday, gray and cold, Charlotte winter pressing against the windows of my office building. I sat at my desk, trying to focus on quarterly reports, but my mind was elsewhere. Today was the day Veronica would have received her monthly deposit. Today was the day reality would hit. My phone had been quiet all morning, eerily quiet. No calls from Veronica, no texts from Patricia, no voicemails filled with accusations. The silence felt wrong, like the moment before a car crash. Graham stopped by my desk around 11. You okay? You seem distracted. Family stuff. It is about to get complicated. He nodded, not pushing for details. If you need anything, let me know. I appreciated his restraint. Graham had become a steady presence in my life over the past few years, someone I could count on without expectations or obligations. It was refreshing after a lifetime of family entanglements. At 11:47, my desk phone rang. The receptionist's voice was cautious. Miss Morgan, there is a woman here to see you. She says she is your sister. I walked to the lobby knowing what I would find. Veronica stood near the entrance, her designer coat buttoned up, her hair perfectly styled. To anyone else, she looked like a successful woman waiting for a meeting. I could see the cracks underneath. The too tight grip on her purse. The rigid set of her shoulders. The fury barely contained behind her pleasant expression. "Natalie, we need to talk. Privately. This is not a good time." Her voice rose. "Make it a good time. Do you have any idea what you have done?" Heads were turning. The receptionist looked uncomfortable. A security guard near the elevators was watching us closely. I grabbed Veronica's arm, harder than necessary. "Follow me, now!" I led her to a small conference room on the first floor, the kind used for quick meetings and phone calls. I closed the door and stood with my back against it. Veronica erupted. "What the hell are you doing?" The bank declined the transfer. "The school called me at 8 o'clock this morning. They wanted to know about tuition payment. Do you know how humiliating that was?" I was standing in the lobby when Mrs. Davidson pulled me aside and asked if there was a problem with the account. "I canceled the payments," I said. "All of them." Her face went through several expressions. Disbelief first, then rage, then something calculated. "You cannot just do that. You promised." "I never promised a lifetime supply. I helped when you were in crisis." "That was 6 years ago. The crisis should have been over by now. The crisis is ongoing." "Derek's commissions are unreliable. The children need their school. You know how important Thornwood is for their futures. Then send them to public school. It is free." She recoiled like I had slapped her. "Public school? My children? With regular people?" "I went to public school. Marcus goes to public school. And look how that turned out." She sneered the words, unable to help herself even now. I felt my control slip just slightly. Then I pulled it back. "Let us talk about what I know, Veronica." Her eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" "The tuition invoices. You have been inflating them, billing me $4,000 more per child than the actual cost. $12,000 a year you have been skimming off the top." Her face went white. "I do not know what you are talking about. I have the school's published rates. I have your invoices." "The math does not add up. Where did that extra $24,000 go over the last 2 years?" She tried to recover. "That is administrative fees. Processing costs. Show me the documentation. Show me where the school charges those fees." Silence. I continued. "And the credit card in Mom's name, the one she did not open." Her face crumbled for just a second before she rebuilt the mask. "You do not understand the pressure I am under. I understand you committed identity fraud against our mother." "That is a felony, Veronica." The word landed like a physical blow. She took a step back. "You have no proof. I have statements. I have the signature analysis Cecilia ordered. I have everything." We stood there in the small conference room, 2 sisters who had never really been sisters at all. Just 2 people bound by blood and obligation, one taking and one giving until there was nothing left to give. Veronica's expression changed. The panic faded, replaced by something harder. Something dangerous. "Fine. You want to play this game?" She stepped closer. "I know things about you too, Natalie, things you have buried." "What are you talking about?" "I know about Marcus's father. I know why he really left. I know you paid him." The words hit me like ice water. "How do you know about that?" "I have my sources. Does not matter how. But if you cut me off, I will tell everyone. I will tell everyone you paid a man to abandon his child. How do you think that will look? For you? For Marcus? 8 years ago, when Marcus was 4, I had made the hardest decision of my life. My husband, Marcus's father, could not accept the diagnosis. He had wanted to send Marcus to an institution, a residential facility where he would not have to deal with the reality of a child who was different. When I refused, he threatened a custody battle, not because he wanted Marcus, because he wanted to hurt me. My lawyer told me it could get ugly, years of litigation. Marcus in the middle of it, examined by experts, discussed in courtrooms, treated like evidence rather than a child. So I made a deal, $50,000 for my husband to sign away his parental rights and disappear completely. A devil's bargain to protect my son from a father who saw him as defective. I had never told anyone. The custody agreement was sealed. It was supposed to stay buried forever. "Tell whoever you want," I said, and my voice was steady even though my heart was pounding. "I paid a man to leave so my son could have a peaceful life. What are you going to tell them about yourself?" "Excuse me?" "About Victor Ashford." She froze. The color drained from her face. "I know about the affair. I have photos. I know about the money he has been giving you, the gifts, the secret meetings. And I know he is under federal investigation for fraud. How much of what he gave you came from illegal sources, Veronica?" The silence stretched between us. She had come into this room thinking she held all the cards. Now she was realizing I had a few of my own. "You do not understand," she said finally, but her voice had lost its edge. "I understand perfectly. You have been stealing from our parents, lying to your husband, having an affair with a criminal, and using my money to fund all of it. And when I stopped paying, your first instinct was to threaten me. This is not over." But she was already moving toward the door. "It is for me. I am done being your bank." She left without another word. I stood alone in the conference room, hands shaking slightly. Not from fear. From adrenaline, from the release of finally saying everything I had kept inside for years. When I walked back to my desk, Graham was watching me with concern. "Everything okay?" "My sister. She is having a hard time." He did not push, but I saw something in his eyes. Understanding, maybe, or solidarity. My boss, Robert, called me into his office an hour later. That scene in the lobby. "Is there something I should know?" "Personal family matter. It will not happen again." He nodded, but his expression was cautious. "HR will probably want to document it." "Just for the record." I understood. The workplace had rules, and Veronica had made a scene in front of half the company. There would be questions, paperwork, maybe a note in my file. Another consequence of her inability to control herself. But I had bigger concerns. The anonymous texts echoed in my mind. "Someone was asking about you at your office." Was this what they meant? Was Veronica already trying to sabotage my career? That night, my mother arrived at my townhouse unannounced. She did not ring the doorbell. She pounded on it. I opened the door and she pushed past me without greeting. "We need to talk. So talk." Patricia stood in my kitchen, her face flushed with anger, her hands trembling. "How could you do this to your sister? To this family?" "I stopped payments that I had no obligation to continue." "No obligation? She is your sister. She has been living off my income for 6 years. Do the math, Mom. $700,000. Patricia waved her hand dismissively. "That is what family does. We help each other. Help goes both ways." "When did Veronica help me?" "When Marcus was diagnosed. When his father left." "You were always independent. You did not need help. The same narrative. 40 years of the same narrative. I needed help. I needed my family to see me. I needed someone to tell Veronica to stop treating me like an ATM. But none of that happened because you trained everyone to think I did not need anything." "Do not be dramatic, Natalie. The gaslighting was so practiced, so smooth, she probably did not even realize she was doing it." "Let us talk about the credit card," I said. "What credit card?" "The one opened in your name." "That you did not open. The one with $34,000 of debt." Patricia's face went still. "I do not know what you are talking about." Aunt Cecilia showed me the statements. She showed me the forged signature. Cecilia is a jealous, bitter woman. Cecilia is the only honest person in this family besides me and Dad. Your father does not know anything about... She stopped herself, but it was too late. "About what, Mom?" "What does Dad not know?" She was grasping for control, trying to redirect the conversation, but I had her off balance. "This is none of your business. Veronica committed identity fraud against you. That is a crime. She stole from her own mother. She was desperate. She made mistakes. She did not mean to. She meant every bit of it. She has been lying to everyone for years. About the money, about the fraud, about the affair. At the word affair, Patricia shut down completely. Her face went cold. I will not listen to you slander your sister. Victor Ashford. There are photos. I do not want to see them. I do not want to hear this. She was protecting Veronica even now, even when faced with evidence of crimes. Some part of her knew the truth, but acknowledging it would mean admitting that her golden child was not golden at all. If you do not restore the payments, she started. I am not restoring anything. Then you are not welcome at family events anymore. She delivered the ultimatum like a death sentence. You are choosing to tear this family apart. I am choosing to stop funding my own abuse. Your father will not support you in this. Actually, he already has. She froze. What did you say? Dad knows. About everything. The payments, the documents, all of it. He supports me. Her face went red, then white. The betrayal of her husband siding with the wrong daughter was almost too much for her to process. If Harold thinks, she started. Harold knows, Mom. He has known for years. He was just too afraid of you to say anything. She grabbed her purse, her movements jerky with fury. You have destroyed this family. No, you and Veronica destroyed it. I am just done pretending it was ever whole. She left without another word. The door closed behind her with a quiet click, more devastating somehow than a slam. I stood in my kitchen, alone, trembling. I had done it. I had stood up to my mother, to Veronica, to the entire family system that had been crushing me for 4 decades. Behind me I heard a sound. I turned. Marcus was sitting on the stairs. His headphones were around his neck, not on. He had heard everything. Mom? I walked over and sat beside him on the step. How much did you hear? Enough. I waited for his questions, his fears, his confusion. Are we in trouble because of me? Because I am different? The question broke my heart. No, sweetheart, no, none of this is about you. But Aunt Veronica said, Aunt Veronica was wrong. She is wrong about a lot of things. This is about money and lies and how she treated you. I am protecting us, both of us. He leaned against me, something he rarely did. I do not like Aunt Veronica. You do not have to like her. But I do not want you to be sad. I put my arm around him. I am not sad, Marcus. I am fighting, and I am going to win. That night, after Marcus went to bed, I checked my phone. A text from Cecilia. Victor Ashford is in real trouble. Big news coming. A text from Graham. Hope today got better. I am here if you need to talk. Nothing from Patricia. Nothing from Veronica. I opened my laptop and searched for Victor Ashford Charlotte. The headlines made me catch my breath. Real estate developer under federal investigation. Ashford Properties faces fraud allegations. Sources say indictment possible. Victor Ashford was going down, and Veronica was tied to him. The affair was not just about attraction. Victor had been another income source, another person for Veronica to manipulate, and now that source was drying up just as I had cut off mine. Her empire was collapsing from every direction. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt exhausted. This was my sister. We had grown up in the same house, shared the same parents, the same childhood. Somewhere underneath all the manipulation and lies, there had been a little girl who used to hold my hand when we crossed the street. That girl was gone. Maybe she had never really existed at all. I closed the laptop and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring more chaos, more revelations, more consequences. But tonight, I had won my first real battle, and I intended to win the war. The weeks that followed moved in a blur of strategy and preparation. January turned to February, and I built my case methodically, the way I approached every project at work. I met with my accountant 3 times, organizing 6 years of financial records into a comprehensive timeline. Every payment documented, every transfer time-stamped, every instance of Veronica's skimming highlighted in yellow. The evidence was damning. Cecilia continued her surveillance. She had sources I did not ask about, people who owed her favors or shared her suspicions about Veronica. More photos accumulated. Victor Ashford's legal troubles escalated daily in the news, bank accounts frozen, investigation expanding. His wife filing for divorce and cooperating with federal investigators. Through it all, Veronica's world cracked and crumbled. The school sent their final warning in mid-January. Tuition 4 weeks overdue. A 10-day deadline to pay, or the children would be withdrawn. Veronica could not pay. Without my money and Victor's support, there was nothing left. The country club suspended her membership for non-payment. She had tried to charge her monthly dues to the credit card I had canceled, apparently forgetting that I had removed her access. The rejection at the front desk must have been humiliating, the kind of public embarrassment Veronica had spent her whole life trying to avoid. The Mercedes was repossessed. I heard about it from Cecilia, who heard it from a neighbor. One morning the car was there, the next it was gone, leaving an oil stain on the driveway like a ghost. The mortgage fell behind. The letters from the bank started coming. First warnings, then threats. The house Veronica loved so much, the symbol of the life she had built on lies and other people's money, was slipping away. Through it all, she tried to maintain the facade. Her social media posts continued, pictures of happy family moments and grateful life reflections. But the cracks showed to anyone paying attention. The backgrounds grew less impressive. The designer clothes gave way to simpler outfits. The carefree smile looked more and more strained. I watched from a distance, documenting everything. Graham became a steady presence during those weeks. Lunches together at work turned into conversations that lasted longer than they should. He never asked about the details of my family situation, but he made it clear he was there if I needed him. There was something developing between us, something I did not have the energy to examine too closely. It felt good having someone in my corner who expected nothing from me except my company. Marcus thrived in the absence of family pressure. He made new friends in his music class. His piano playing improved dramatically. He seemed lighter somehow, freed from the shadow of relatives who saw him as defective. I was building a new life, piece by piece, while Veronica's old life fell apart. In early February, Derek called me for the first time in years. "Natalie, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." "Okay." "Have you been giving Veronica money?" "A lot of money?" I confirmed it. $680,000 over 6 years. The sound he made was like something breaking. She told me her grandmother left an inheritance. She told me she had investments. "It was you, this whole time, yes, the whole time." His devastation was audible even through the phone. His pride, built on a foundation he thought was solid, had just crumbled to dust. "I found something else," he said. "About Victor Ashford. I know about him too. He needed to meet, in person. Away from Veronica, away from everyone." We met at a coffee shop the next evening. Derek looked destroyed, bags under his eyes, clothes rumpled, the look of a man who had not slept in days. He brought a folder thick with documents. I brought mine. For an hour we compared notes, my spreadsheets showing every payment I had made, his discoveries showing what Veronica had hidden from him. The picture that emerged was worse than either of us had imagined. Veronica had a separate bank account, one Derek had never known about. Balance: $85,000. She had been siphoning money for years, building an escape fund. The burner phone Derek found in her closet contained texts to Victor going back 18 months. Not just romantic messages, financial discussions, arrangements. Victor had been paying Veronica for something, though the texts were vague about exactly what. And some of the deposits in her hidden account came from offshore sources, the same kind of offshore accounts mentioned in news reports about Victor's investigation. "My wife may be involved in federal crimes," Derek said. "The money from Victor, if it came from his fraudulent businesses, she could be charged with receiving stolen property. Or worse, if she knew where it came from." We sat with that for a moment. "There is something else," I said. "A document my father signed." I showed him the notes I had gathered from Harold's confession. The home equity loan for $175,000. My father's signature obtained under false pretenses. The payments I had unknowingly been making. Derek looked sick. She used her own father to commit bank fraud, and me to pay it off. We strategized. Derek wanted a divorce. He wanted primary custody of the children. He wanted to protect them from Veronica's lies and the legal exposure that might be coming. "Will you testify?" he asked. "About the money, the deception?" "Yes, for the kids' sake. Not for revenge, for truth." Before we left, Derek mentioned something else. "Veronica has been making calls I cannot trace, talking to someone for hours. Not Victor. I think she has a lawyer, or someone helping her plan something." The anonymous texts came back to me. "She knows you are talking to Derek. She is planning something. Be ready." Someone was watching. Someone was warning me. I still did not know who. As I drove home, Cecilia texted. "Victor's wife talked to the feds. She gave them names. Veronica's name came up. The investigation was circling closer.